All right, next up, pitching out of Atlanta, we have Anders Lillevik, founder of Focal Point.
And I'm here to talk to you today about my solution. I developed Focal Point as a company when I realized, after 25 years as a procurement executive, that there were no tools for procurement professionals to do strategic planning, map projects to meet those strategic plans, and to facilitate the projects after the fact to track benefits and to ensure that plans are being met. Hence, I brought Focal Point Procurement to be. The problem is, like I said, the procurement department uses Excel spreadsheets, PowerPoints, and email to create strategies, and it's an outdated manual process. And as you can see from the slide, they're completely on an island. And if you think about all the different things that have to come together to create a complete strategy with stakeholder buy-in, it's a big undertaking and it requires a lot of work. And if you think about, what you need to figure out is the spend, how much money that's is on contract, who the stakeholders are, who the vendors are. And if you don't already have all that stuff together, it becomes very, very challenging to create a strategy that's coherent. And very often, procurement professionals have to do this after the fact as they are getting contracts ready. And oftentimes they have to start over again, which requires a lot of rework, and it becomes a time-consuming process. It's frustrating for both stakeholders and vendors. Focal Point facilitates all this through AI powering best-in-class processes. But the first thing we do is consolidate all the data. We aggregate it in and pivot it on an axis we call category management or categories. A category can be anything from management consulting to IT hardware, IT software, contract manufacturing, anything like that. And we take each of these categories through a process where we categorize the risk and importance of that category to organizations. Then we figure out what the relative supply market positioning is. So how much power does the supplier have versus the buyer? Based on those things, we develop recommendations using the AI engines and let the organizations design and create strategies that meet their needs rather than generic market needs. After that, we map the projects that are needed to be executed in order to fulfill that strategy. And afterwards, we track the progress towards achieving those strategies by updating the data and continuing to renew recommendations as the data changes over time. We have made quite a bit of traction. We started with market validation and creating a prototype after we filed for the patent. We have a provisional patent currently, and we're filing for a complete patent later on. Using the prototype, we were able to secure our first letter of intent client, and we are very close to getting a second as we are rolling out the pilot sometime in October. We're in full development at the moment, and we have great traction, and we're making good headway. In addition, we have been accepted to the Founder Institute Accelerator starting in October, so I think that's a very good fit for us as we are rolling out the product as we're getting into the Accelerator program. We have a fantastic team. Combined, myself and Edward Chick, our COO, has over 50 years of experience in procurement. Myself as a practitioner and him as a leading sales organization in the vendor space. He has been managing large vendor organizations in the procurement space. We also have fantastic advisors and IT support people to help us along the journey. We are very well positioned to bring this forward. What we're asking for today is obviously we're raising some capital, so we want your consideration for that. We also seek connections with industry to help us guide us on the journey. And last but not least, if there are any clients out there who this product could fit in, we would be very helpful. This helps organizations save money, reduce risk, and increase productivity. And with that, I'll be happy to take your questions.
Question time. Don, we can start with you this time. Switch it up a little bit.
Thanks, Anders. That was a great pitch. I'm really curious to get a better understanding of the software and the interface itself. Is this something that aims to be self-serve, and if not, what does an integration look like?
So it's a little bit of both. So the first thing we do is we integrate with the existing infrastructure that's there, and we bring it together, like I said, and pivot it on this axis called categories. At the beginning, it's self-service, meaning that the organizations will go in and select the category they want to manage and the attributes of that category. So which vendors are in that space today in the organization? who are the stakeholders, what are the contracts. They kind of help us along the way. Then we guide them through a process where they answer a set of questionnaires that have been predetermined as part of the development setup process. And then we deliver those recommendations based on AI and what they have told us from before. So we have a learning algorithm that kind of says, if these conditions are met, then this is the right strategy, given what your goals are. So if your goals are to reduce risk, it'll be very different than if you're trying to save money. The integrations themselves will be done through SFTP. It's probably the most appropriate. We don't need real-time transactional capabilities. So probably we need to drop in terms of a daily SFTP load from the source systems that are sitting either behind a firewall or as a SaaS provider within the clients today, and we drop it into our service. We have not considered yet integration into the systems from our system, but obviously that's the next step.
Got it. And clearly I see this as a network effect, once you get more data, but how do you overcome the cold start problem? Are you just using initial data first? And how confident are you in some of these algorithms?
Well, I'm spending my life going through the data that we have from our two pilot clients and writing algos right now based on what we're seeing. And also some of these things are fairly generic, right? So if you have a supply problem where you need to have more than one provider, obviously, some of these are very sort of binary in terms of the recommendations, and some of them are a bit more finessed. And those are the things we have to really double down on. And the cold start problem is a great way of putting it. I've never heard that before, but you described it perfectly.
Great, thanks.
Nice. Michael.
Yeah, thank you so much for sharing this. This is a really compelling idea. I think you're operating in a pretty interesting space. Just had one question about the categories that you said your technology actually supports or actually is looking to. Is there one category that performs better or works better with what you developed over another? And if so, what are they?
So I will say that, if in procurement, you kind of break things into indirect or direct, right? The direct is going towards cost of goods sold. These are things that manufacturing companies have figured out how to buy again and again as part of a day-to-day operations. Our sweet spot is going to be on the other stuff, indirect spend. And within that category, within that large bucket of spend, there's obviously spend that is larger and more unmanageable today, IT, consulting, things that are large spends, few transactions, and a lot of opinions and those kinds of things. Those are the things that lend themselves better, because what we want to do is try to get opinions and feelings out of making a purchasing decision and being more data driven, right? That's something procurement professionals struggle with every day. They know what the right thing to do is, but actually getting the backup with data to support it becomes kind of challenging.
Yeah, makes sense. Just one more question as well. I can see your platform really benefiting by having a lot more people on it, like was mentioned in a previous question. Is there the ability to say, hey, I don't want my company's data to actually be a part of your algorithm. I would rather it be private or kept separate from some of the other users?
Yeah, I mean, at the end of the day, I think what we're going to do is build, like you said, crowdsource data and crowdsource algorithms. And obviously, we're not going to let anyone else see anyone else's data. And I think the network effect is something that everybody benefits from, albeit if somebody says we want to opt out, I mean, that's something that becomes a discussion at that point in time. And I think, if the case is compelling enough, we will let that happen. But I think you'll have to be on a case-by-case basis, right?
Okay. Thank you.
So two different parts of feedback. First of all, I think some of the questions are answered, which is good. I think you lost me at the start, Anders. I think I was a little bit overwhelmed with the amount of maybe jargon that might be commonly known to you. And I'm like, I'm not sure. So I don't know what it is. Maybe the other two didn't feel that or the audience didn't, and that's okay. I hear lots of pitches, so I'm like, oh man, what is he saying? Came in a little bit stronger towards, the middle and the end. And so I guess, a question for you is, what's the biggest risk? What do you, what's keeping you up at night to go, this is why this won't work? Talk to me a little bit about that.
The biggest challenge that we run up against is really procurement individuals are extremely risk averse, and they are very difficult to sell to, and they're very difficult, especially when they want to give you terabytes worth of data that we can mine for decision-making activities, right? So I think that's, the biggest hurdle to overcome. We're dealing with companies that I've certainly talked to that are name brands, large in size. They see the merit. This is great. We kind of get it. Even just getting our data where we can say, what are the contracts in management consulting? That's something that they can't really do today without going through a lot of actual manual work. So they get the value right away. But then I said, fantastic, give me all your data so I can help you with that. They go, oh, wait a minute, we need to have a fully operational environment that we can penetration test, we can get things up and running, and we can actually, poke at it. And, I think getting some traction will overcome that. But it's what keeps me awake at night is that initial traction and push.
Yeah. Okay, fair.
Great. Okay. Any follow-ups or any other questions to that? And I'll give some time for the crowd or the audience to ask some questions on the chat. It looks like we have one comment. I agree with Saba. Procurement is a big, complex area. At the beginning, I would have loved to see an explanation and set the stage and brought me to your world a little more.
Yeah.
Feedback.
And I'll just backing off Rochester play, adding in a bit of a story and going, hey, this is who we're for, and here's a problem we solve in the simplest form, and it might make it easier for dummies like me to go, okay, I totally get who it is for and why. And so maybe, otherwise, great.
Thank you, Saba. That's great feedback.
Okay. Awesome.
All right. Thank you, guys.
Great job.
I'll drop off.
Next up, we have pitching out of Mexico, Renato Carrega, founder of Tegger. Renato, your time starts now. All right, everyone. Thank you so much for sticking around and viewing our first Party Pitchers Pitch event. Have a great rest of your night and see you in September, where we will have 5 more amazing companies join us in the hut. Until then.